Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show. And today we're going to be talking trade deadline and whether you may or may not have made some moves on your trade deadline in your leagues, or if you don't have a trade deadline in your league, please message us. Let us know how terrible trade deadlines are and why they suck. And so, Matt, what are your thoughts on a trade deadline just in general in leagues? Why you like them, why you may not. I don't know. There's arguments for and against them.
So in redraft leagues, I like having a trade deadline the last week of the season just because. I also like locking the non-playoff teams out of the waiver wire come playoff time in redraft leagues. So just because they don't need to be playing with that, number one. And number two, that's when a lot of things can get sideways with teams that aren't going to the playoffs. It's hard to prove a lot of stuff. So anyway, I'm for it in redraft formats. But in Dynasty, I don't really care to have a trade deadline. I don't know. I don't think so.
I think the problem in redraft comes in leagues where there's no punishment for last place. I think if we all learned that you need to have a punishment for last place in redraft leagues, that would keep everybody interested. All right. Or else you're not back next year. If you don't do the punishment, if you finish last and you don't do the punishment, well, see you later. We'll get somebody else.
Like the Sacco. Yeah.
Exactly. Like I don't care whether it's you spend 24 hours at Waffle House or whatever your 24-hour restaurant is in your area.
I think you should wear a one-piece spandex wrestling gear that says "I suck at fantasy football."
Yeah. I mean, anything to punish the last place person would make them continue to try. And then it's okay if they pick up waivers, do this or that. I mean, I had one league where somebody spent all their fab this week, $100. They literally hadn't spent anything all season. And then they picked up Isaac Orendo this week. And they have no shot at the playoffs. All right. Now I'm all for them in the spirit of competition. They're playing against somebody who is in the playoff mix. So that's fine. Right. But we don't have a last place punishment. And so there's maybe one or two other teams in the bottom four of that league that aren't even maybe setting their lineup this week. And that's unfortunate, but it's our own fault because we don't have a last place punishment in that league. And we're going to implement one for next year, but we didn't for this year. So that is one thing that you definitely need to address in your redraft leagues is a last place punishment. Now in Dynasty, it's a little different. A last place punishment you could do to counteract being awarded the 101 in rookie drafts. I don't know that I don't have any Dynasty leagues that have a last place punishment.
The punishment is consistently giving your money and not winning. That's the punishment.
Yes, that's punishment enough. I agree.
For so long.
Totally. I agree. I mean, yeah, it's awesome to have a roster full of draft picks, full of nice young talent. But if you're not producing and you're not ultimately winning, because that still is the goal, to win the league, I think it's very easy in Dynasty. Many of us who've played it a few years, and you've definitely caught on, you've played it enough now that it's great to look at a pretty roster full of young talent, but you still need those Terry McLaurins on your team to actually ultimately win. And I use Terry McLaurin because, of course, we had a deal with Terry McLaurin not too long ago. And we did another deal as well that it was J.J. McCarthy and a first for Justin Herbert just a couple weeks ago. And it was total win-win for both of us. You're going to get the 102 in this upcoming 2025 draft, and I'm contending to win a back-to-back title in that league. And I trusted Justin Herbert way more than Sam Darnold. I had Darnold and JJ McCarthy to stack up with Justin Jefferson, but the way Darnold's been up and down this whole season, I didn't feel secure with that going into the playoffs. So Justin Herbert, I trust. And from your end, I mean, it's easy to see. JJ McCarthy should be back next year and hopefully is successful. Yep. I have nothing against McCarthy. It's just that he's getting me 0 points
for me, which I need. And I get a first on top.
Right. And that leads me into somebody we talked briefly about yesterday, Rashee Rice. Okay, if you're a contender and you're sitting on Rashee Rice, well, geez, shop him to the rebuilding teams because he's a huge, huge dynasty asset. Like this dude was putting up top 5 numbers before he got hurt. He was getting fed more than Kelsey on that Chiefs offense. He's tied to Patrick Mahomes, right? And you can sit here and argue what you want about Patrick Mahomes' dynasty value and where you think it is and where it isn't. But the fact is the guy's still a good quarterback. Okay, you can't argue that. He's still a good quarterback. And he's going to be around for, as much as we might not like it, he's going to be around for quite a while yet. And unless he dances along the sideline long enough that somebody just
lights him up.
But point is that Rashee Rice is going to produce very likely next season at a similar level that what he was doing this year, barring the suspension that's hanging over his head. And I'm not too worried about it, honestly. I traded for him in one of my rebuilds, and I'm more than happy about it. I don't care about a 4-game suspension. I don't think he's going to get more than that. So Rashee Rice, we brought up yesterday, and we threw out a few names. Now, I just brought up keep trade cuts because it's, a baseline for us to use as dynasty owners to value some players. And so Rashee Rice right now, he's sitting at wide receiver 16. And there was a point earlier in the year, let me bring him up, early in the season where he was all the way up to wide receiver 8. And wide receiver 8, basically him and Puka just flipped, essentially, because Puka, while he was hurt, was down in that area, right?
Yeah.
And so if we look now, though, at the receivers around Rashee Rice, we can say right ahead of him is Ladd McConkey at 15, George Pickens at 14, and JSN at 13, Garrett Wilson just ahead of him. Now, any of those guys heading into next year, if you're a rebuilder, can you tell me honestly, you would not rather have Rashee Rice than any of those guys? I know that I know you love JSN, and he's looking very good right now. But the fact remains that DK is going to be there next year, and we don't even know who their quarterback is. Rashee Rice, we know who their quarterback is.
Right.
We know what role he plays in that offense. And I don't think there's anybody in their right mind that would rather have JSN than Rashee Rice if they're rebuilding.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I was fortunate enough to be able to trade for Rashee in a dynasty league, and get him in part of a deal as I was shedding off scoring pieces in a league I had no chance to win in. So, I just happened to do it weeks ago. That's all. The opportunity presented itself in a great situation. So, yeah, I absolutely agree. Because, and we've talked about this before too. I mean, there's guys in front of those guys I'd still take Rashee Rice over.
Yeah, just ahead of those guys, you have Drake London,
take him.
Brian. Now, I think where it gets tricky is wide receiver 10 is Brian Thomas, and then ahead of him is A.J. Brown. So Brian Thomas is younger than Rashee Rice. So that's a very I would say that's once the off season gets going and we get up
Mhm.
until to August, that's where you could have the debate with Rashee Rice is Brian Thomas. AJ Brown is just ahead of him. Now AJ Brown will be another year older going into next year. So I could see easily both Rice and Brian Thomas jumping AJ Brown just because of age
Yeah.
there. And then you have Marvin Harrison right ahead of them.
That's
So
overrated, but that's okay.
that's a tough call. Like
I
Rashee
wouldn't have
Rice,
Marvin in my top
Marv.
10 right now. Not for Dynasty. I wouldn't have him in my top 10.
You don't have Marv in your top 10?
No, I don't. What have you seen this year that makes you feel good about next year? I mean, long term, is he going to be a top 10 guy? Maybe, but I haven't seen anything this year outside of like a game or two that says, "Hey, this is going to be good." Even with Kyler Murray there or someone different, I haven't seen it. I just haven't.
Well,
I haven't seen anything that explodes off the paper. Maybe it's one of those JSN things where everyone's super high rookie year. Oh, things didn't go the way we thought going into year two. Maybe you're getting him discounted because people are not. They have a bad taste in their mouth from his rookie year. I got JSN super cheap in startups and in deals because people had a bad taste in their mouth. So I couldn't get him. I couldn't pry him from you guys in TBLBR, but that was like the only
we
I
didn't
did
want
not get JSN in. So,
I didn't want to get rid of JSN. No,
the right
absolutely.
price,
And I feel
love
the
Marvin
same way.
Harrison. Top 10 price, I don't love. I don't. So,
Well, that brings up an interesting point in that Marv has sort of soured, right, in the market. And so if you have a Marv owner in your dynasty leagues that has soured on them, this may be a perfect buying opportunity on Marv. Now you may want to wait, but wait until the offseason, you're going to get more hype. You're going to have guys like AJ Brown who are aging, so you'll get Marv bumped up a little. There's a rookie in Tet McMillan who's going to be somewhere in the mix around this range as well. But to me, what I've seen from Marv, he didn't have that first month explosion that Neighbors did, right? But on the flip side of that, what you haven't seen from the Cardinals is any other wide receiver show up and do anything. We had Michael Wilson touted. We had, Greg Dortch was always there. They were always just kind of getting in the way, right? They were always getting enough work to sort of just leave you leery of an actual true wide receiver one there. But this year, I think Marv, if you take Trey McBride's target share out of the way, which is awesome, Trey McBride's target share between the 20s, Marv's still been a very good red zone target. I think he's like third or fourth in the league in touchdowns. Did you know that?
I know he was high, but that's scary to me as a fantasy owner because that just screams touchdown dependency, which we know there can be positive regressions on the other end to help balance him out. And we know that will come with time. But my biggest question is Kyler Murray the quarterback that's going to do it? And with that, I don't believe that he is. I think I saw everything I needed to this year. He had himself a prototypical wide receiver one in Marvin Harrison. And now I'm convinced it has nothing to do with Kyler Murray. It has everything to do with Cliff Kingsbury because look at Washington. And then look at Jaden Daniels play fresh into the league versus Kyler Murray, who's been in the league. They both had Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury's still successful calling offensive plays and scheming his quarterback up. Kyler Murray, oh my God. If he doesn't run for 50 plus, he is killing your fantasy team. Killing it. Because you can't drop him, but you can't play him either. I
don't know. I haven't
Kyler,
any trouble with my Kyler teams.
That scares me. And then it gets into who's going to be their quarterback if it's not Kyler. That's scarier. So that's why I wouldn't have Marv there. There's lots of reasons. It's not just all production. That's part of it. But it's also looking a little bit deeper, because in Dynasty you have to some extent, you have to look a little bit deeper and who's actually going to be throwing him the ball as it applies to receivers, right? So we'll see. I mean, there's flashes of good things there, but
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a
I'll
tougher
say
investment for me. That's why I would buy him cheap.
Sure. I'll say this. I would love for you to have Marv in one of our leagues together right now. Because I'm buying. I like
have Marv. You
I
just can't trade for him yet. You got to wait till the offseason.
yes,
there's a trade
I'll
deadline.
hold off. Yes. But I believe Kyler will be the guy there for the foreseeable future. And I've seen Kyler just feed DeAndre Hopkins in the past. Now, when Hopkins was lighting it up, they didn't have a Trey McBride there. Okay. But I just see the talent, the route running, it's all there from Marv. He just needs to put it all together. And I think that he will. And the worst case is he's, I'm trying to think of a good comparison. Like worst case, he's Drake London. That's worst case for me. Because Drake London's obviously been
paying a lot of capital to have a barely wide receiver 2 production.
Right. But at the same point, you're not paying CeeDee Lamb prices. You're not paying Jamar Chase prices.
Not
anymore.
now. Yeah.
You
not
were
after the season. Yeah.
Right. You were back in August and September. So that's where I'm getting at. You and that ceiling is still there for Marv. I think it's possible. All right.
Well, I agree. He's
But
got a super high ceiling.
at the same time, we need to realize that that's kind of what we're buying into, is that hopium, right, Matt?
Yeah.
Hopium is the drug for us dynasty players that can kill us. But
opium and projection.
yes.
Getting your weekly projection as an injection of hopium. So
we'll get into one of your teams that is ultimate hopium right now, and that's in our Birdhouse League. And
bring it up.
Let me go bring
do it.
Let me go bring up the Birdhouse here. I'm a contender right now, but we're talking your team.
Yeah, my team is co-managed between me and another buddy of ours. But this is a lot of moves got made just past the midpoint of the season, when I started making early assessments of all dynasty teams and which way I wanted to go. And I knew this team was going to not be this year. So I made a lot of deals to improve next year, do a 1-year flip is what I'm hoping. Because it wasn't like we had a bunch of bad pieces. We had a lot of good pieces, but this just the moves I think we made and how we stacked ourselves up going into the off season, we're on track to do a 1-year flip in this league.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've built teams like this and had great success. I just decided to push in because I had so many draft picks and I was right there. I had early success. And right now I'm sitting at 22-4. So I can bring up your team here, the Smash Brothers. You're second in overall team value. You're at 7-19. So not a playoff team, but you can see the overall value there.
Hold up, man. But quarterback, running back, and tight end rank look good.
Yes. Yeah. Your wide receiver rank is low, but this is best ball. So that's not as important because you can get points from these guys down on the bottom. Roman Wilson's obviously been out all year, but Turpin, Mason Tipton, McCaffrey, Troy Franklin, Rashid Shaheed. There's been points this year at times where these guys have all been putting up points. They have had big games. So my point is basically in best ball versus a lineup league, from Troy Franklin down here, these are guys that I don't mind owning in best ball. Whereas in lineup league, I would not want to waste roster spots on these guys unless they were sitting on my taxi.
Right.
You know, they would just be roster cloggers. So that's the main difference between a best ball versus a lineup league. In a lineup league, I would just want to have, 5 or 6 other running backs.
Yeah.
And have 15 running backs on my team, just hoping for an injury. Not hoping, just waiting for, because it's football, injuries happen.
So I look at this too, and I mean, if you look at the overall youth of this team, it's an extremely young team. But the pieces that we were able to bring in, like Rishi Rice and Rashid Shaheed via trade, along with like Luke McCaffrey, and then multiple other picks. Those are guys that are netting me nothing right now. And I mean, you look at Shaheed's value at 28.51. Are you serious? 28.51. Look at everything he was doing since Kubiak started calling the plays in New Orleans. It wasn't Chris Olave being featured. It's Rashid Shaheed. Look at the snap share. Look at the target share. Look at the depth of target. He's not just a big play receiver anymore. He's their featured receiver. So being able to get him at the price we're able to get him, that value will get higher as we get closer to next year and as next year plays out. And then we've been talking about Rice ad infinitum, so I'm not going to add to that already. But we had some good pieces to build around in Bijan and Pacheco and Lamar and Drake May. So having Bucky Irving come out of nowhere in a sense and shine like he has makes it that much stronger. And then we're young. We're very young. Sanders is flashed as a tight end. We've all seen what happens when Zach Ertz leaves town, what the tight ends that do behind him. And we've got Ben Sinnott and Cade Stover, who's flashed a little bit this year. So we got a lot of young pieces in a tight end premium league with a lot of draft capital. So, and if we do get that number 1 pick, we'll have our choice of top talent come April or May, whenever we have our draft. So this is I'm very excited about this team and the build that we have. Because we're versatile here. We're very versatile.
Yeah, so if I look at this roster, I'm good with the tight end room if I'm talking going into 25 and wanting to compete.
Right.
I'm good with the tight end room. You've got at least 3 guys, if we're counting Sinnott as somebody who's going to see decent action.
Yeah.
I'm liking those 3, and Stover gets into the end zone here and there, so that's totally fine. Where I'm going to put my focus here is the quarterback, running back, wide receivers, and how you're going to maneuver to create a contender. Because when I'm building a best ball quarterback room, I like to have 3 or 4 quarterbacks at least.
Right.
There's teams where I've got 5 or 6 starters. Now, Lamar Jackson and Drake May are set and forget, right? But the point I'm making is that you still want to have in best ball an extra body or 2 that are starters.
Right.
Now, should you be able to acquire in the offseason, especially some older veteran quarterbacks, you want to go out and look. I'd be looking at trying to get like a Matt Stafford, trying to get
Russell Wilson,
Kirk Cousins is still
Geno Smith if he's actually the starter. Type players, or even like a Baker Mayfield, being able to try to acquire Baker Mayfield.
Right.
Like guys that I would call the Jay Cutlers of the past. They may not like jump off the page as like this quarterback you want to have on your team, but when it comes to fantasy, they just put up the points, and that's all that matters, right? So yeah, having something like that is going to be something we look at, and like I feel good about our running back room. We're going to be straight honest. I feel great about our running back room and far as what I'm bought into. As
Matt, do you want to try reconnecting your I don't know what's going on with you're just getting feedback. Okay. Now try it.
How about now? Is this better?
It's still there. Still. It's still
Goodness. How about now?
Still the same.
All right. Hold on 1 second.
Well, hello, everybody. So looking at Matt's roster here, what I was getting at was possibility of adding to his quarterback room there, using one or two of his 3 second rounders that he's got, which are going to be very hot come the you want to try it again, Matt?
Yeah, how are we doing now?
It's still there. Okay. Well, as I was talking about his he's got 3 second rounders there where are perfect weapons to use come draft time. He's already pretty well set at the running back position there with Bijan, Bucky, and Pacheco going into next season. And then you've got a nice body in Charbs. And then this is a running back heavy class, so he doesn't need to exactly stack up the running back room. So using those 3 seconds there to try and acquire an extra body at quarterback would be ideal. All right. Now, when you look at the wide receiver room there, you've got Rashid Shaheed, who we've mentioned in the past couple of shows, and today now he's going to increase in value. To me, he's more valuable than Tank Dell, so he should be worth more than Tank Dell here. Keon Coleman is a great piece in best ball to have. Troy Franklin's nice. He's super cheap right now. He could develop better. But he's one of the weapons that Bo Nix has, and he'll have his weeks. I'm not worried about the wide receiver room. It would be nice to add a body or two. You'd want to see like a solid vet in there. Somebody, I mean, Terry McLaurin's not the greatest example because he's way overperforming from what we thought, but somebody like Chris Godwin, if you could add him going into next season, Mike Evans, it could DJ Moore even. You could go a little bit higher there. AJ Brown, yes, would be a great addition. However, you're able to boost that up. I'd like to see one more near elite wide receiver. You don't have to like throw the whole house at Amon Ra or Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson. This is best ball. You can get those kind of points out of the remaining. It's a start 12. It's a start 12 league. Yes. And Tet McMillan, you could take number 1 overall. You don't need Ashton Genty on a roster like this because it's start 12. And I mean, sure, Ashton Genty, I don't care where he goes, he's going to produce pretty well. And so to add to the wide receiver room would be an object of my desire for a team like this, because with Bijan, Bucky, and Pacheco, you're pretty well set there. All right. Now, if something presents itself, I wouldn't be opposed to it either. Like Bijan right now, he's sitting at running back 1. When Ashton Genty comes in, who knows how high Ashton Genty's stock is going to rise. He's valued at 8,000, Bijan. Last year, when Caleb Williams and Marv were being argued back and forth as the number 1 overall pick in our rookie drafts, that's right about where their value went. It was at 8,000. They were fluctuating. So even though Keep Trade Cut has an early first rounder here, which it doesn't list as an early, mid, or whatever, but Matt's first rounder here is only valued at 5,300 here. Well, we know it right now. It's going to be a top 3 pick, which already bumps it up to 6,500 to 7,000. If it's number 1, it's going to be 8,000. Okay. So
it'll be number 1.
That is where. What's that, Matt?
It'll be number 1.
It'll be number 1. Okay. Yeah. So we're looking at an 8,000 value there, whether it's Genty or McMillan. And for this roster, yes, I agree. I would take Tet McMillan on this. Now, that doesn't mean that you couldn't trade it and trade down. You could acquire an extra first and second, or an extra first and a body, like a Chris Godwin, and get somebody's 105, 106 pick like that. There's nothing wrong with picking Luther Burden, right? Luther Burden is going to be somebody who in lineup leagues is going to be tough to start right away. But in best ball, I would not mind having Luther Burden at all on my team. Luther Burden, Trey Harris, ton of other wide receivers in this class. So they are not bad receivers. We are just looking for the bombastic weeks from them. Yes, that is Shaggy. I'll give credit to the bombastic weeks we want in best ball formats. So point is that Matt has set himself up very well going into the next season. He's, like we said, the second most valuable roster in this league, and now he can play around with. He's got a lot of pieces to play around with here going into 2025. And so I think if he solidifies his quarterback room a little better with one or two decent veterans, I mean, shit, you can get away with having the super cheap Jameis Winston's. Who else is out there right now playing? Okay, Matt just mentioned that it will change after this week. We'll know for sure who has the number one overall. Okay.
That's right.
But what my point is that have the right backups. He's got Tommy DeVito there, right? DeVito had a week where he started. Cooper Rush right now is getting weeks that fit into best ball lineups. So keep that in mind when you're contending in a best ball league. It's super important to try and fill out that quarterback room with good QB 3s and 4s, because there's weeks where Lamar Jackson has enough of a floor that it's hard for him to finish under 10 points, but Drake May doesn't run quite as much as Lamar. Drake May still has a good floor as well because he does run. So, I mean, I love those two, having those two as your quarterbacks. Just saying there's bye weeks and there's weeks where they do underperform, and you want it. There you go. Sam Darnold. That's who I was thinking of. Mac Jones, Joe Flacco. Those are perfect guys who you want to have as your backups, especially guys who run the ball. I found it's good to have their backups. Perfect example was Flacco. Those were all guys you drafted and traded this year. Okay. Which is perfect. That's how you develop a team. The backup quarterbacks, I can't emphasize enough. The backup quarterback position, if you're rebuilding, that is one of the easiest ways to acquire value, is having backup quarterbacks, because immediately when the starter goes down, boom, they're fine. They're immediately worth something to at least one guy in the league, if not others who have buys, who have other injuries. They will want that guy to insert into the lineup or potentially get into the lineup in a best ball format. So Matt's got a lot of nice pieces here. But it'll be an interesting off season here. Some of his picks, one of his picks didn't work out in Laporta so much, but that doesn't mean that Laporta's worthless. Laporta's only in his second season. Like it's not like he fell off the map. All right. He's still scoring points here and there. Maybe he's not Brock Bowers right now, but that doesn't mean that he's, it's still a tight end premium league. Yes. So he's still having definitely good weeks. The thing is that only one team in this league has Brock Bowers, right? You're only playing against them once, maybe twice a year. So you're only going up against Brock Bowers once. It's when you're going up against the teams that have George Kittle or have Kyle Pitts or have, you know what I mean? You're still right in there with those guys when you have a Sam Laporta, and you can outscore them any single week when you have a Sam Laporta. All right. Now, if we scroll down to my team here, which is a contending team, we can show you what pieces I have to what Matt would hope to be at next year. And you can see my value's gone down. I put away some draft picks and trying to remember who I traded for. I know I drafted Chase and Harrison to start. And let me think here. Try and look back at this. Oh, you'll definitely be better next year, Matt. Yes, this was the league where I made a trade with Hergot during the draft to move up and pick Baker Mayfield. I traded my whole 25 draft to acquire 26, Hergot's whole 26 draft, because I looked at the 25 draft and the 26 draft. Nobody was making any trades in this during this startup, which was insane to me. But I think we all were leery of each other because this is a very competitive league. Like, all these guys in this league know what they're doing. And so that was the first big deal with draft picks. And I figured I'd stack up for the 26 class. Matt's like, Ramen, I didn't know. Don't kid yourself. You guys knew what you were doing. I'm trying to remember which body I went out and acquired here. That's right. I had Chris Godwin, who was blowing up for me earlier on. And yes, I went out and traded for Kenneth Walker, but I traded for Devonta Smith. I gave up one of my firsts for Devonta Smith. I gave up Godwin and a first for Devonta Smith. And I think I got the other Tampa wide receivers that I have on there at the bottom: Trey Palmer, Sterling Shepard, who haven't done anything, but at the time it was worth a shot. So you can see my quarterback room here, nothing special at all. Bo Nix, Baker Mayfield, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, and Cooper Rush. None of them is a QB1, so to speak, right? But Bo Nix actually is scoring like a QB1. And yes, that hitting on Bo Nix has been huge for this team. Baker Mayfield obviously has outperformed his draft position where I picked him. Dak being down, yes, that hurts, but Cooper Rush still has his weeks. Russell Wilson obviously outperforming right now. But Russell Wilson is another great example of a super cheap guy in the offseason. I mean, I couldn't tell you what round I got. I probably picked Russell Wilson in round 20. Okay. I'm sure Justin Fields probably went ahead of him. So those are the types of quarterbacks that, especially in best ball, are the guys you want to target. And I'm sure with your draft capital, Matt, you'll be able to acquire one or two of those types of quarterbacks this offseason, especially from teams who are older like mine. And I don't know how good my roster will be going into the offseason because we still have a whole month, but who knows? I may have to start rebuilding next year, and then I'll have pieces for you. For now, I feel very confident about a lineup like this going into the playoffs. I don't have any draft capital because I've used it now until the 27 season, any real draft capital at least. But that doesn't mean that I can't turn around and flip this into, a team going into the 26th draft where I end up having a bunch of picks. And I have, 4 or 5 of these bodies are no longer on it. Apparently Matt's going to be owning this league for the next couple of years. We'll see how that goes. But
just this one.
All right. Just this one you're going to own. All right. So we wanted to get into a couple of other leagues. Matt is doing a great job of contributing here while his mic is having troubles. So there's one other league I wanted to take a peek at, that would be our Crash and Smash League that Matt put together. It's also a best ball league. Let me go back and bring that one up for y'all. And where is it here?
It's a fun one.
There we go. All right. So in this one, Matt has a team that's going to sneak into the playoffs, I believe. There we go. He's sitting at 7-6.
You just wait.
And
I got something coming for you. Oh man, you just wait.
Right now, Matt is crushing it at the quarterback position with Jaden Daniels hitting. And so he also has Lamar in this one and Russell Wilson hiding down there. Drew Lock actually getting the opportunity. So this is the perfect kind of quarterback room I'm looking for in a best ball league. Then you go to the running back positions. He's got some nice cheap options in Mixon and Stevenson. If Tajay Spears gets back into, if he gets healthy, that would be helpful. But he's got Gus Edwards down there, nice and cheap, getting points right now. So whenever Gus falls into the end zone, he'll slide into his best ball lineup. With Jefferson, Neighbors, and JSN up top there at receiver, looking very solid. Then you've got some dart throws down there with Tank, Leggett, and Dontavian Wicks, who week to week, any of them could get you into double digits in points. And then the tight end room. Oh, sorry, I forgot about Calvin Austin and Kevontae Turpin, as Matt just brought up. Yes, Calvin Austin and Kevontae Turpin have probably gotten into his lineup probably more than Tank Dell this year. Yes, because there's points for return yards in this league. So keep that in mind also with your formats. Double check that. I'm a big believer that you should be getting points for return yards. Anytime your guy is out on the field and risking himself to injury, you should be getting rewarded for that, whether it's even just a 10 or 15 yard return and you're only getting a point for 50 return yards. That's fine. You still should be getting something for them, because we all know some matchups come down to decimal points. And so those are important points that you can still get. The tight end room doesn't look spectacular on the surface, but this is an ideal tight end room that you draft when you wait on tight end. Here he waited and got Jake Ferguson late, right? Because Ferguson was probably the 8th, 9th, 10th tight end off the board. And then he scooped up Ben Sinnott late, who hasn't done much yet, but that's fine, because Noah Gray definitely has. Okay. With the injuries at the wide receiver position for the Chiefs, Noah Gray has snuck into his best ball lineup, I guarantee you, probably 4 or 5 times this year. There it is. 4, he pointed out. 4 times. And that's great. Out of somebody like Noah Gray, who you got probably in round 20, and then you add Grant Calcaterra this week, who you grabbed off of waivers because Dallas Goedert again is injured. So Calcaterra, he's going to be involved. All right. We don't know Devonta Smith's injury situation, and Jalen Hurts. Right. It's a dart throw. It's somebody out there. He could fall into the end zone. He doesn't even have to fall in the end zone. Calcaterra is a guy who could get 5 for 60 in a given week this week when Goddard is out. So this is a nice built team. He's not given up on his draft capital. He's sitting on his wide receiver. Yes, you have the most valuable wide receiver room in this league. And you have 2 firsts, going forward. Now, you have Ted Lasso's first, which is looking. I can't slide down here. Let me get over here. Uh, Ted Lasso's.
11 or
Just trying to
12.
find his record here.
It's 11 or 12.
He is at 10-3, so it's going to be a late first, likely. But you combine the fact that you're going to have your pick, which is projected, trading it. Yes. Right now you have a mid first and a late first. Now, those are great pieces in the off season to maneuver around and use as you wish. And then you still have your second, so you've got something in the arsenal. Number 7 and number 11 as of now. Okay. So again, those are two pieces you could package together to move up if there's somebody you like. If you want to go after an Ashton Genty, that's something you could definitely pull off here, because that would be a great add to a running back room that has an older Joe Mixon, getting older Ramondre Stevenson. They would be great piece. Ashton Genty would be awesome to add to this. And this is a perfect draft class for your team where you have the potential. I mean, if you were to, let's say, keep your 3 picks in the 2 firsts and second, I'm supposed to keep my eyes open for a trade in the next 48 hours. All right, we'll see what happens here. Because do we have a week 14 trade deadline in this league?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So yes. And so this league would be perfect for the argument of, no trade deadline. Because best ball, you don't have to have your lineup set. And so as the weeks go on in the playoffs, it can really get fluid with, if you get eliminated, let's say you were the 3 seed and you get eliminated in the first week. Well, you obviously have some contending pieces if you were able to make it up to the 3 seed. And that would be an ideal situation to flip one of your guys to a now more contending team to help them try and win and help you gain some more draft capital going into the next season. Let's see here. Where's my team? There we go. Conklin, that ass. Yes. And Tyler Conklin is the main weapon there. Look at my tight end room of Will Dissly and Tyler Conklin. I am hanging on by a thread with those two. But that's totally fine, because with the rest of my roster, I've been able to build up an 8-5 squad. Derrick Henry's obviously smashing, Brian Robinson as well. Unfortunately, Jordan Mason isn't going to get looks this week, but I still have got bodies down there. Jaleel McLaughlin, Kareem Hunt, they're still going to get work, so they can sneak into the bottom of my lineup. Strength of this team is obviously the wide receiver room and quarterback rooms. Trevor Lawrence is down, but I have Mac Jones. I have Cooper Rush. So I have 4 quarterbacks weekly that can score points for me. And then pretty solid wide receiver room. No studs. No, unless you want to call Pickens that, but he's not an elite wide receiver. However, he's perfect in best ball because of his boombastic ability there. And so with Pickens, Jaden Reed, same thing. DJ Moore, maybe he's pissing you off in your lineup leagues, but I'm telling you, in best ball format, he's totally fine. Khalil Shakir, nice floor player. Deebo Samuel, terrible this season, but he still has the ability, these playoffs, to boom. And then Michael Pittman, same thing. Terrible this season, but he's still a body, right? He still can get to 10 to 15. Darnell Mooney has been a huge performer for me this season. Romeo Dobbs is out, but there's Christian Watson, right? And now I've added David Moore. See, all of the receivers on my team, what do I have? 10? all 10 of them, other than Dobbs this week, could get into double digits for me. And so that's why I like to build it. I'm happy with this team build right now. The tight end room may look like it sucks, but I'm telling you, Disley or Conklin, they can get into the end zone any week, and they still have the ability to get 4 to 5 catches every game as well. So
Disley's
that
gonna
is
have
the
a
way to.
big week. Disley's gonna have
What's
a big
that?
week. Disley's gonna have a big week.
Disley's going to have a big. Oh yeah, gotta love Will Disley. Absolutely. Any of you looking for a tight end in this bye week, in a redraft format? Disley's definitely somebody who's out there on waivers in many leagues. I know some savvy people have him on their team, so he's probably, my guess, in redraft leagues, he's probably owned 20 to 25% only. And so Kansas City's horrible against the tight end. And so Will Disley is definitely a nice, savvy scoop there for you.
Yeah.
All right. But that's all I've got. I'm not going to brag about this team anymore. I'm just going to let them go out there and win it in the next few weeks for me. But I ain't afraid of anybody, not in best ball. I've grown to love the best ball formats so much. I can't see me joining any more lineup leagues because I'm filled to the brim there. And, it's just frustrating when you have guys on your bench scoring points who you've done the work, you've put in the work to draft them. And then, like a Darnell Mooney, right? All season long, he's been performing. But if you had Darnell Mooney in your lineup league, how many of those points did you actually capture? Because I guarantee most of the first month you weren't playing him, right? And it took getting into weeks 5 and 6 and 7 and some injuries to happen to have you finally have to put Mooney into your lineup and then actually capturing those points. Meanwhile, in a best ball format, I drafted Darnell Mooney probably in round 15, right? And he's been scoring for me all season long. So he's been outscoring DJ Moore, that's for sure. And so, I mean, that's been, Mooney's probably right up there with Jaden Reed, honestly. I think about it. And so it's just crazy and way more fun for me personally. I know Matt feels the same way about these best ball leagues. He's got Calvin Austin and Kevontae Turpin down there, and they're getting into the lineups. And there's nothing more fun than seeing a punt return go for a touchdown and your guy getting the points because of the format. So I encourage you all to check out some best ball leagues this off season because they are just so fun to be involved in. All right. Matt, do you want to add something if you can? I know the mic is back. All right. So that's all we've got for the best ball talk and the trade deadline talk. Me personally, I've switched on the trade deadline thing. I think that you can eliminate trade deadlines. I think the biggest hang up on trade deadlines is the worry about collusion. Like you're going into the semifinals or the finals and somebody is just going to load up another team, right? But if they're rebuilding, they're going to be recouping some draft capital at a higher premium than they normally would be able to get. I know Matt had an example of a few years ago where somebody traded Alexander Madison to a contender for Derrick Henry. It was Derrick Henry's season where he was going boombastic the first half of the year and then got hurt, right? Well, you look at it now and it looks terrible, right? But that guy needed Alexander Madison to win a championship, and that's what he was willing to give up. And that's what you're going to see. If somebody wants to win a championship, they shouldn't be denied the opportunity to do it. Is it right or wrong? You can argue that either way, but that's their choice. If you want to win the champion, that's the goal of these leagues, is to win them. And so if you want to give up some value, that's totally fine. You can make up for that value in the next year or two. You can find a way to make it happen, right? So I am for eliminating trade deadlines, and that's the way I'm going to go forward with it. So I just want to thank you all for joining. Be sure to ask us any questions, start, sit, lineup, trade, whatever, at buymeacoffee.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. And check out our rankings at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. That's all I've got. Enjoy the game tonight and your home run in pizza. Never stop working.